Quick trivia question. What is the biggest proof of work crypto after Bitcoin? You may be surprised to learn that it's actually Litecoin. And another fun fact is that Litecoin is actually the backbone of Dogecoin. But for some reason, Litecoin just keeps flying under everyone's radar. And that's despite no downtime whatsoever for 11 straight years and working hard really on achieving its goal as crypto's top payments coin. So we're going to pay some attention today to what has really become crypto's kind of forgotten darling. And I'll share with you 4 major reasons why Litecoin, ticker LTC, really should be a part of your altcoin portfolio. Welcome to the channel. My name is Maddie and this is Altcoin Buzz. Best of luck if you choose to invest, as always. But just remember that I'm not a financial or investment advisor, and therefore by extension, this video is not official financial or investment advice. The first major reason why you ought to consider LTC in your altcoin portfolio is very simply the Litecoin Halving. This is by far the biggest recent news when it comes to Litecoin. It actually took place yesterday at the time of this recording, and it still didn't pump LTC. In fact, pretty surprisingly, Litecoin even dumped about 4.5% in the last 24 hours. I guess it was a bit of a buy the rumor, maybe sell the news kind of situation. But yeah, not a lot of fanfare at all for, what's a pretty big event in terms of Litecoin's history. And now that LTC's halving has disappointed a lot of holders out there, Bloomberg has stated that the upcoming Bitcoin halving might also disappoint BTC holders. It's possible, hopefully not, but it is possible. But what's more likely, and which is also my suspicion, is that Bloomberg probably doesn't know about Litecoin's halving cycle and how it works. I'm going to explain to you so that you can make the most of this opportunity. Let's start with some important facts here. First of all, Litecoin started as a fork from Bitcoin, and it is a proof of work chain, as I mentioned. Secondly, its stated goal is payments, plain and simple. And to achieve this goal, Litecoin has 4 times as many coins as Bitcoin, right? 84 million for LTC as compared with BTC's 21 million. And take that 4 times multiple, it also produces blocks 4 times faster than Bitcoin, every 2.5 minutes as opposed to every 10 minutes. And then Litecoin's mining algorithm functions so that miners can mine it and Bitcoin with the same hardware. And so for these reasons, it was originally marketed as the silver to Bitcoin's gold. And as with Bitcoin, the block reward goes to the miner who solves the current block. In this case, the reward went down from 12.5 LTC to 6.25 LTC per block. And like Bitcoin, miners provide the proof of work to keep things decentralized and secure. And actually, halving events are going to keep taking place to keep Litecoin from becoming inflationary until the last halving event, which will take place in the year 2139. Bitcoin has over 90% of its coins mined already. Litecoin is close, but slightly behind at about 87% of its coins mined at the time of this recording and the current halving. Let's talk a little bit about the impact of the halving. Because when it comes to Bitcoin, maybe you choose to believe some of the quant analysts out there like Plan B and his stock to flow model, which is based on 2-year cycles. And then the bull cycle, specifically according to the theory, begins 6 months prior to BTC's halving and then continues for another 18 months thereafter. Well, that's not the case with Litecoin. Litecoin actually follows a pretty distinct pattern in contrast to Bitcoin. In the last 2 halvings, for example, this is what happened. We saw a pretty good run up in the price before the halving and then selling for a couple of months after the halving, most likely profit taking, and then a huge run up after the selling phase stopped. And this run up is bigger than the first one, actually. So for example, in the 2019 halving, the numbers worked out in the following way. We saw an increase of 550%, then a decrease of 70%, and then another bigger increase of 1,500%. And by the way, the same thing happened with even bigger numbers after the first halving in 2015. Like with Bitcoin, the Litecoin halving is a big deal, and the network only gets stronger as a result. And what did Litecoin do immediately following the halving? Like I mentioned, down, unfortunately, about 4.5% in 24 hours. Okay, so reason number 1 to get into Litecoin, like I mentioned, was the LTC halving. Reason number 2 is the Dogecoin and Litecoin connection. And originally, I was very surprised to learn that Litecoin actually provides network security to Dogecoin. It does that via a process called merged mining. And the story behind this is that Dogecoin's blockchain, originally created as a joke really, was at risk of an attack in 2014, because it was on the verge of exhausting block rewards due to a frenzied pace of currency issuance. So, Charlie Lee, the creator of the Litecoin blockchain, he stepped in and proposed a merged mining arrangement, thus allowing Dogecoin to borrow Litecoin's network security, ultimately rescuing the embattled cryptocurrency. And what followed, as we all know, was a lot of speculation, a lot of Dogecoin Elon Musk bromance, and at the end of the day, really was all thanks to Litecoin. Reason number 3 to consider LTC in your altcoin portfolio is the fact that Litecoin's hash rate right now is at an all-time high. That's always a strong and healthy indicator. So this is a key data point, not only for Bitcoin, for Litecoin, but for any proof of work cryptocurrency. Hash rate is very important because it tells us how much computing power is actively powering and protecting the network, ultimately. And it might be natural to think that after a halving, when the reward goes down, that the hash rate would also decline. But that's not what's happened in previous halvings. And more importantly, Litecoin's hash rate hit an all-time high just a few days ago on July 31st, 2023. It hit 816 terahashes per day. And to put that into perspective, that's a lot of computing power because only Bitcoin Cash and Bitcoin have more power to protect their networks. So Litecoin's network is healthy and it keeps getting healthier. It keeps growing. These are things that we certainly look for when considering tokens for investment. And finally, reason number 4 to get behind Litecoin and LTC is the SEC effect. The Security and Exchange Commission is what we're talking about here. And look, don't let all this recent news, right, that Coinbase was asked to delist every token but Bitcoin before the SEC filed suit. Don't let that fool you. And by the same token, as good as it may be for the industry, don't let the XRP decision fool you either. Because as far as the SEC is concerned, the only asset with absolute clarity as far as not being a security, that's Bitcoin. And the two assets with the most clarity after that, with clear evidence that they are not securities, well, those are the big 2 Bitcoin fork coins, Litecoin, number 1, and Bitcoin Cash. So there's a reason why in the early days of crypto exchanges like Coinbase, like Kraken, Gemini, and Paxos, they only offered 5, maybe 6 coins. They were wary about whether other tokens, especially ones that did ICOs like Ethereum, or ones that did big private community sales like Solana or Cosmos, whether or not those would be considered securities. And from the beginning, even when they could only offer a handful of coins safely, 3 of them were always Bitcoin, Litecoin, and Bitcoin Cash. So in other words, this crackdown, or whatever it is, whatever you want to call it, what's happening right now at the hands of the SEC, could actually end up being pretty good for Litecoin. It has faster and cheaper transactions than Bitcoin does, making it an ideal coin to use as the swapping mechanism between the coins Americans tend to buy and the ones they really want. And there could be increased demand to hold on to LTC as well, because after all, as I talked about earlier, hash rate is at an all-time high, and hash rate always precedes price. It means the network is healthy and that miners are still profitable even with lower block rewards. So look, just because Litecoin is number 12 right now, 11 actually at the time as I record in terms of market cap, that doesn't mean we know everything about it. Because in fact, out of the top 15 projects, it is probably the least reported in terms of crypto media. It just quietly does its thing while maintaining and growing its $6 billion plus market cap. And it's a safe bet, in my opinion, that it's going to grow further from here.